So what are we kind of, I guess, as a society, like doing to help prevent this? I know there's a lot of nonprofits, maybe there's some for-profits, and especially like the government, because I feel like out of all the issues that we're talking about right now, I feel like something like this, like sex trafficking, is so, there's no controversy, like there's nothing, there's no reason not to fight for this, I feel like. And I feel like it's not talked about near, if you're saying 45 million for human trafficking, like 45 million, I don't understand how this isn't kind of out there more. Do you know how many organizations, like non-governmental organizations and, you know, government departments or whatever?
Yeah. Are you looking for a number?
Or something. I don't know. Are there a lot of, you know, nonprofits like Two Wings out there?
There are a lot of organizations doing work at different levels of I guess from rescue to recovery to prevention and intervention. So there are organizations that are focusing on different areas to get exposure of the issue out there and more awareness and education. And then there are those that are providing hands-on direct services for those that are being rescued. And then there are others that have more of like a national campaign or something that really educates the community on what does it look like in your own neighborhood and how can your choices on a daily basis, especially when it comes to human trafficking, how can your daily choices make an impact? And, you know, that could be from shopping fair trade and making sure that, you know, the food that you eat or the coffee that you drink is not made by someone who's forced to work that field or to, you know, harvest certain grains. And so there really are, you know, a lot of choices we can make as individuals, but then also opportunities to get involved on a more local level, depending on what that interest looks like. There are companies that are also making, you know, those decisions that they're going to be an ethical company in how they produce their products. So making that transparent supply chain visible so that people can see that they really are making that decision to be an ethical company.
Now, is it really? I mean, I know the answer is yes, because otherwise it would be done. But is it really that difficult to find these pimps and these buyers and to like get them? Like, well, it's obviously such a widespread thing, but I feel like how is it so difficult to end this?
I know. It seems like, you know, such a easy and obvious thing. Like you see them, let's arrest them. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen that easily because a lot of these girls are being brainwashed when they are being brought into the life that they often won't give up their pimp. And so they could be arrested, and which typically happens is that the girls will get arrested
for like prostitution.
Exactly. And so they get brought in for questioning and they have an opportunity to say, I'm here against my will, so-and-so is my trafficker. But oftentimes they've been brainwashed to think that law enforcement is not there for you. They're there to trick you. They're not there for your best interest. And so these girls then are afraid to be honest and to share, or they could be threatened again with, you know, reaching out to their family or whatever that looks like. And so there's all this fear that, you know, if I give that person up, there are all of these consequences. And a lot of times these girls believe that this guy is their boyfriend or someone who really cares for them. And in this sick and twisted way, like they convince themselves of that regardless of how many times they've been brutalized by this man. But they're, you know, after 30 times of being beaten, maybe on the 31st time he said, I love you, and I think I still care a lot about you, that's enough. That's enough sometimes for them to think, well, he really does care about me. And so they don't want to give up someone that they love and they care about and get that person in trouble. And so it makes it really difficult to then go out and just, you know, catch all of these traffickers.
And it sounds so silly. Like, how could you fall for that? How could someone beat you and sell you to people and then tell you they love you, and then you melt for them. But I mean, you see it on like, very, very small level. I think on just like on an everyday basis. I don't know if you have, girlfriends or even, your past or dating or whatever, but like, you'll see it in yourself sometimes. Like, oh, I let so-and-so, not abuse, but like I let them treat me a certain way that they shouldn't have for long enough because I thought there was something there or whatnot. And that's like on like the healthiest normal level. So if you're saying a lot of these girls are unfortunately coming from, really bad upbringings or childhoods, that's why they're more vulnerable to falling into this, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, the research that we've been doing now on trafficking survivors and just as humans, how our brains develop and work, what they're finding is that the part of your brain that makes rational decisions doesn't really fully form until you're 25 years old, which is why teenagers and young people make such emotional decisions, because their brain just hasn't developed in that way. And so if we're expecting these young girls to make rational decisions in those situations, it's not going to happen. They just aren't physically ready to make those decisions.
Yeah. What do you think some parents could do? Because if a lot of these, if they're young, you're saying like 10, 12, 13, whatever, they're still in the household, whatever that household might be. I mean, how are they even falling into these traps in the first place? Like, what can parents be doing?
Parents really play a huge role, anywhere from just developing that self-worth. Fathers have such a huge impact on young girls without realizing it, and just being present and really building up that self-worth and value in their young girls is huge. But also, watching what your kids do on social media. There are so many more social media outlets out there that, as people our age, we don't really think about or even use, that young people are using and are vulnerable because these traffickers and exploiters are creating social media handles that say that they're a lot younger than they are, and create these relationships and build trust in that way too. And they think, I'm interacting with someone that's also my age. And reality is, it's someone much older who is just waiting to exploit.
Yeah.
And so being conscious of that, like, who are your children interacting with, and having those conversations that not everyone online is safe.
Yeah.
Making sure they have private social media handles, that they really are not out there unassumingly exposing themselves to these people who might not have their best interest in mind.
It's just so crazy to think that kids can have access to this whole other world, anonymous people, complete strangers. I mean, for me growing up, the worst we had online was like AIM. I can't even remember what it was, instant chat or something. But even then it was pretty much only your friends. I mean, I guess if you really want, if you knew how to work the system, you could find people, but it took effort, and you had to have, the connection was slow.
I feel like we're living in a much different world because of just the accessibility to the internet, and just so much more out there than there was back then. I think currently what they're saying is there are approximately 70,000 men daily that are scouring the internet looking for girls underage. And so that's images or opportunities to connect via chat. And so to think that amount of men who are sick and twisted that are looking for these little girls, and to think that your child is just spending the time like, oh, it's mindless, they're just playing a game, or they're not realizing, oh, there's a chat component to that, and you don't know who they're chatting with while they're playing that game. You don't know who's on the other end. And not to I don't want to put that fear into parents as well, of let's shut ourselves out from the outside world. But really just being conscious of what is the media you're consuming as a family. And from a whole, as I mentioned earlier, is this media that is building up your young people and giving them the confidence and self-worth to? Who are they talking to? Just being aware. I think that's the first step, is just making sure that you're active in your young person's life.
Yeah. A part of me feels like I'm never going to let my kids on social media until they're like, older and I'm not giving them a cell phone.
Yeah.
But it's just like, if and when that ever happens, like at that point, it's just not going to be a possibility, really.
Yeah. Oh, my husband and I joke about that all the time. I have a 14-month-old now, and I think when she's a teenager, we are moving to Montana. We are disconnecting from the internet.
People.
We are really, really
yeah.
disconnecting from that world, because, you just, once you know and are aware, it's hard to then close your eyes to that and to think that that doesn't happen. And so once you know, it's, oh my God.
Well, that's one of my theories of like maybe why people aren't talking about this more, because it's such an uncomfortable, inconvenient, horrific truth that's like so apparently prominent. And it's like once you know that, you kind of have a responsibility to not know that.
Exactly.
And so I think people are kind of maybe subconsciously like, putting up little blinders.
Yeah. It's easier to be ostriches, right, with our heads in the sand and to not really think about what's going on. There's so many more, different atrocities that are happening across the globe, and, human trafficking is just one of them. But becoming more aware and just educating yourself, I feel like, is so much better than just to have the assumption that, this isn't a topic that's going to affect me or my family or my community or my friends. And in reality, it does. In some way, it affects everyone.
And I know you said it happens a lot in the United States, unfortunately. What are some other areas in the world that, are there specific areas in the world that are particularly bad with this?
Yes, so Southeast Asia, we're seeing a lot of young girls that are being sold there. And there you'll find girls even younger than our average age here in the U.S. And there's a huge industry of sex tourism there. And so...
What is sex tourism? I saw that, but I didn't...
So that's...
Is it as bad as it sounds?
It's as disgusting as it sounds, yes. It's someone who is traveling to a destination to find... to buy sex usually from a minor. And so, there are all these little girls who are being sold in it. And sometimes what we're seeing in other countries is that, families just don't have the means to support all of their kids. And so, it might be the solution for one child, like for them to live if there isn't enough food for everyone. And, how do you choose one over another child? And so, it's always, whether it's here or there, it's circumstance that is dictating, why someone is being sold.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching the episode. If you're interested in contributing to the conversation and supporting the show, there's 2 easy things you can do. 1, click subscribe, and 2, visit our Patreon page where you get exclusive access to the Exploring Minds community.